For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. K-Man Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The K-Man Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the Record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Monday, the 23rd day of September 2019. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable weekend. Those of you who were in the districts where we got a little bit of rain, I'm sure that you're extremely thankful for that as well. For those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, if you're a pedestrian, cyclist, operating any type of motorized vehicle on the roads of the Cayman Islands, again, we urge you to be extremely cautious. Ensure that you observe the rules of the road and remember that the life you save may be your own. For those of you who have lost loved ones during the past few days, we want to extend our sincere condolences to you, and we hope and trust that your faith will help to carry you through these very challenging times. Those of you who are celebrating birthdays, who's a birthday today or celebrated one in the past few days as well, we trust and hope that you enjoyed your special day as well. And those today, we say to you, enjoy your very special day also. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the very busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number, 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, then email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record at candw.ky. WhatsApp us on 925-3261, where we encourage you to send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And, of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. This morning, it is my pleasure to have in the studio with me MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. He's the temporary Minister for Employment, Border Control, Community Affairs, International Trade, Investment, and Maritime Affairs. And that's only temporary. Can you imagine if he was permanent, what it would be? But today, he's here on the show in his capacity as for representing the Ministry of Community Affairs, which also includes gender affairs. Also in the studio with me this morning, we have the Honorable Mary Lawrence former Speaker of our Legislative Assembly, and resident historian, I will, for the record, as well. That's the new title we will give her, and for the record, resident historian. And her paycheck? We talk about that one next year. And her colleague, resident historian, Dr. Steve McField as well. Folks, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. And we'll start with Beauty in the room first, and we'll have the Honorable Speaker say a few words to our listening audience. Madam Speaker.
Good morning, everybody around the table here with me and throughout the Cayman Islands who might be listening, and of course overseas, because I find that a lot of people follow what is happening here from the Cayman Islands through Radio Cayman. It's a beautiful morning, and it's a morning in which we're going to research and talk about how we got where we are and the role that women has played in that. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation today, particularly when I see three men around the table here. And there's only one little old me.
Right, yes.
But yes, it's going to be a very interesting conversation, I believe. And I hope a history lesson, because we were looking at the press recently, in the last few minutes, in fact, and I don't think anybody is noting the historical significances of the dates that we are celebrating here.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it's important that the public listen in and gain the information from the program here.
Yes. Well, and I think what I should do at this point in time is that let our audience know what we will be discussing this morning, really, and I will share with you also some remarks that have been issued by the Premier, and I would imagine that this was circulated to the press as well, so I'm surprised that this wasn't really front page material this morning. But today, the 23rd of September, marks the 60th anniversary of the first general election held in the Cayman Islands after we received our first written constitution in 1959. So that's what we will be talking about this morning. Also, we will be discussing the 1957 petition that was circulated, signed to give women the right to vote. Also, we want to talk about those persons who signed that petition, some of them who are still alive today, and we will be mentioning names as well. So that's what we will be talking about. And like Madam Speaker said, surprising that none of our print media has carried such a significant and momentous occasion at the anniversary of such a momentous occasion in the Cayman Islands, and none of them have covered it in the press media, in the print media this morning. We'll go around the table now to Temporary Minister, Mr. Harris.
Good morning to you, OC. Good morning to the listening audience tuned in. A special good morning to my constituents in Prospect. And certainly it is a pleasure to be with you this morning, in particular in such distinguished company as the former Speaker, the Honourable Mary Lawrence, and my very good friend, and certainly I think Cayman's accepted historian, Dr. Steve McField. Looking forward to this morning's conversation, which, as you quite rightly pointed out, is here to recognize the 60th anniversary of the first general election held on the 23rd of September 1959, which of course followed the adoption of the first constitution, and I think to Mrs. Lawrence's point, also followed the passage of the sex disqualification and removal law of 1958, which, as you pointed out, took its rise from the 1957 petition, which, of course, I think 358 women signed, again, insisting for the right to be treated as equals in this country. And I think we all would agree that this date marks a pivotal date in the history of the Cayman Islands, and I'm delighted to be here with you.
Thank you very much. Doc, good morning.
Good morning to you, Mr. For the Record, and good morning to Madam Speaker, my good friend, Dr. Lawrence, and good morning to Mr. Harris, the acting minister. it surprises me because I didn't realize that he would become acting minister. I remember the last time I saw him, he was on a radio station. I was one of his guests.
Yes.
And he was beating me up.
Yes, on the radio station. And good morning to all for the record listeners and locally and in the diaspora. And yes, it's no wonder. It's not a coincidence to me that the media has not carried this significant milestone in our history, because a lot of them don't know. And they really don't care about Caymanian history and Caymanians at all. And it's funny that when I listen to you reading the stories, the narratives about in the 1960s, the newspapers then belonged to us. They were our newspapers, and our editors were Caymanians. So today it's not the same. So they don't really care about this milestone in our history, and it doesn't mean anything to them. It's not their history, and so they don't care. And I think that is something that we ought to take into account. The other thing about it is that it just starting in 1958 and 1959. It actually started in August in 1948 with the letter that the women wrote. That's when it started. And by the way, that month, August 1958, was a very, very important month, because in Georgetown we have two by-elections where two candidates were polled and had the same amount of votes. And they were going to have three by-elections. It was Mr. Maliko and Mr. Berkeley Bush. They and in fact, Mr. Maliko wrote a letter also to the commissioner expressing his feelings that it seemed impossible to have three elections with two candidates tied three times, and he suggested the possibility of tampering, and he called for an investigation. Unfortunately for him, they had the second by-election, and Mr. Berkeley Bush won that round. And Mr. Berkeley Bush was then elected to the Legislative Assembly. So, our history is very important to us, and that's the reason why I keep going and I get up in the morning to come to the radio station, because I think it's very important that our people, at least my children, know the history of where I come from and where my family come from and where my people come from. Other people don't care. They care about Henry VIII, and like I remember I was at a college one time in Canada. I was going to Vancouver City College, and we had a professor came in. He used to come in to give lectures all the time. And he said, well, I'm not going to keep you long. I'm going to be like Henry VIII said to his wives, I'm not going to keep you long. And I jumped at him right away. And, I says to him, I don't think you should say that. Because if you think that was a good thing, if you think that history was a great history, then I don't really want to come to your lectures anymore. And he asked me, he saw me later on, and he says to me, "Why do you say that?" And I told him, I says, Henry VIII was not a great person. I mean, who can chop off your wife's head because you want to sleep with another woman? I mean, but that's the kind of people that we rever and Cayman and that we hold above us, but not me. I don't hold those people above me, and so that's the reason why I'm happy when you ask me to come here on the radio station so that I can inform and as great Dr. Roy Borden says, inculcate to my people the history of our country.
Thank you very much, Doc. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, I will read the Premier's remarks on this very auspicious occasion as well. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the historical vignette series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas.
Following the end of slavery, the relationships between the former masters and ex-apprentices varied across the island. Relations were peaceful in West Bay, where the former masters entered into bargains for work and property rentals with their former slaves. However, the same was not the case for Bordentown, which historically housed the largest concentration of slaves. The former masters wanted to hire as much labor for the lowest wages in return for the former slaves' continued usage of the homes, whereas the former slaves wanted to keep their houses without obligation to work when they wished for the highest wages. The former slaves would eventually move to East End, clearing the unoccupied land for themselves.
Radio Cayman's Historical Facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
When you need stability, think Business of the Year.
Considering a new career opportunity, think Best Place to Work.
When dependability matters, think Outstanding Workforce.
In need of a reliable financial partner, think Bank of the Year.
When you seek excellence, think Cayman National.
No matter how many accomplishments we achieve, we always set the bar higher. That's why we are the most awarded bank in Cayman, and we are proud to be your
2018 Bank of the Year.
Have you seen the latest? Cayman has been ranked the most expensive place to live. It's time to buy smart. It's time to buy Ropers. Find everything for your home and kitchen at low prices at Ropers. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Clean up your spending with Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Ropers Janitorial also offers complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
I'm going to Vamp Motors to test drive the new 7-seater Rush.
They have some really sweet deals going on now, not true?
Yep, on SUVs. And they sweeten the deal by giving you a warm oven-baked cookie with each test drive.
Better test drive more than one, just to be sure.
Take a test drive for a sweet surprise this month at Vamp Motors. Test drive any SUV and receive a freshly baked cookie. It's our way of saying thanks for dropping by to check out our huge sale on every SUV in stock. Save up to $4,400 during Vamp's summer SUV sale. That's every SUV in stock on sale for thousands off or cash back. Sweeten the deal only at Vamp Motors, Walkers Road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
In 1996, Rotary Club Central led the way initiating a disaster fund to prepare and assist our community toward recovery. The Rotary Clubs of the Cayman Islands then expanded this valuable instrument, the Rotary Cayman Disaster Fund. Thereafter, Rotary District 7020, a group of 86 clubs over 10 countries in 16 islands across the Northwest Caribbean, grew this idea, the Rotary District 7020 Disaster Fund. Today, this Rotary Central idea has worked relief and recovery, assisting communities throughout this region. Rotary, with you before, during, and after. Rotary, connecting the world.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All-Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, Honorable Mary Lawrence, former Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, Dr. Steve McFeel, and Acting Minister, MLA, and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. I promised you that I would read the Premier's remarks on the 60th anniversary of the first general election held after the Cayman Islands received its first written constitution in 1959. And it goes on to say, just a few short months ago, we celebrated the 60th anniversary of the first written constitution for the Cayman Islands. I said then that there would be many other observances and events over this 2-year celebration that has recognized the anniversaries of both our coat of arms and our Constitution. Today is another one of those days as we recognize the 60th anniversary of the first general election held on 23rd of September 1959 after the adoption of our first written Constitution on 4th of July 1959. But before the election on 23rd of September 1959 could be held, candidates had to be nominated. On the 16th of September 1959, the Office of Administrator Alan H. Donnell advised the public that the nomination process was completed with 26 candidates nominated to run in the election. What I find most interesting on that list of candidates is that 4 women were on the ballot. Mrs. Burdell Jackson of West Bay, Mrs. Ethel Cook Borden for Georgetown, and Mrs. Francine Jackson and Mrs. Laurel Watler, both of Bordentown.
Always lead the way.
Yep. These patriotic and brave ladies were the first to ever be nominated and to appear on a ballot for election in the Cayman Islands, all due to the dedication and boldness of the women, including my grandmother, Ethel McLaughlin, who fought long and hard for women's suffrage and the right to run for office. They helped to usher in the sex disqualification removal bill that was passed into law on the 8th of December 1958. While none of the women were elected, the mere fact that they were on the ballot is a testament to their temerity. Those elections in 1959 were a turning point for our elections process because women finally had a vote and were able to run for election and hold office. Those elections also ushered in our modern legislative assembly. The important role that women have played and continue to play in creating a modern Cayman is significant. This is why, when I was Minister for Education, Training, Employment, Youth, Sports, and Culture, my computer just rolled back.
Read it from the
okay, I have it. Sports and Culture.
In 2009.
Go ahead, Madam Speaker. Continue to read it for me, please.
I and the government I was a part of dedicated their monument aspiration in Heroes Square as part of a 2009 Heroes Day observances, which focused on the contribution of women in the total development and history of the Cayman Islands. Again, the main purpose of this day is to recognize the 60th anniversary of the first general election held after the adoption of our first written constitution on the 4th of July, 1959. Below you will see the listing of candidates, including my own grandfather, William Allen McLaughlin, on that original ballot that included men and women, both the victors and those who lost in the 23rd September 1959 election. And he listed the elected members and of the House that was elected at that time, and those who were nominated but did not win. Do you want to read those names as well?
Yes, I think we have enough time, Madam Speaker. Yes.
Okay. The elected members were Arthur H. Ebanks from West Bay, J. Cadian Ebanks from West Bay, T. William Farrington from West Bay. West Bay had 3 members. Georgetown had 3 as well. Dr. Roy McTaggart, E. Duncan Marion, and A. Colin Panton. And then the Sister Islands had 2, Nolan B. Foster and K.P. Tibbetts, or Keith P. Tibbetts. Boddentown had 2, Malcolm Eden and James A. Miller. Mr. Miller resigned before he was sworn in, and Mr. Anton Bodden took his place.
And you're going to tell us the story about that later on as well, Madam Speaker.
And William Allen McLaughlin, who was the Premier's father, was returned unopposed in East End. Craddock Ebanks from North Side. Those who were nominated but did not win were Spurgeon A. Ebanks from West Bay, Mrs. Bird L. Jackson from West Bay, Prentice L. Powell from West Bay, John S. Smith from West Bay. In Georgetown, William Wallace Bodden, Malcolm H. Coe, Mrs. Ethel Cook Bodden. They were the ones who did not win in Georgetown. And I would note here that Mr. Oman Panton was nominated but turned down the nomination.
Yes.
Withdrew. He was later appointed by the commissioner to the council. Arnold Foster from the Sister Islands, Orrin B. Jackson from the Sister Islands. From Boddentown, Mrs. Francine Jackson, not Francis Jackson, Francine Jackson and Mrs. Laurel Watler. And from Northside, Mr. Samuel A. Powery. Those were the ones who did not win a seat, but who contested the election.
Okay, I think we have about 1 minute before we go to the news. So anything you want to add there, Madam Speaker?
Yes. I think we should go back on the timeline a little bit. The 3rd of July, 1959, was the final meeting of the Assembly of Vestries and Justices. And on that same night at midnight, the House was prorogued. The Legislative Assembly and Justices ceased to exist.
And what was that date again?
The 3rd of July, 1959.
Okay.
On July the 4th, Constitution Day was declared. A new Constitution came into effect. August the 10th, they published the election list. And from August the 10th to the 20th, the public was given an opportunity to scrutinize the list. The list was published on notice boards throughout the island, church doors, the post office, like in Boddentown, Guardhouse Hill, shop doors, wherever there was people walked or went, and people read those notices. That's how they knew what the government was doing. The public notices were issued on it. And you were given 10 days in which to scrutinize the list. There were no objections registered.
Okay.
On the 14th was nomination day. The 24th was election day. And the 5th of October, the new parliament opened.
Excellent. Folks, you're getting very valuable, important information, historical information on For the Record this morning. And that will continue when we return from the 8 o'clock news. So please don't change that dial. Lots more to hear on For the Record on this very momentous occasion. So please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And studio time by Price Right is 8 a.m.
Price Right is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Price Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Price Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by Sagicor. Let us put a smile on your face. Call 949-8211.
Access and information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
With your latest news, I'm Karsley Fuller. Looking now at Tropical Storm Karen. At the last check, the center of the storm was located near 13.6 degrees north, longitude 63.9 degrees west. Karen is moving towards the northwest near 8 miles per hour, and this general motion is expected to continue today. A turn toward the north is expected on Tuesday. On the forecast track, the center of Karen will move across the eastern Caribbean Sea tonight. On Tuesday, Karen is expected to pass near or over Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. The National Weather Service says maximum sustained winds are near 40 miles per hour with higher gusts. Some fluctuations in strength will be possible during the next 48 hours due to strong upper-level winds. Tropical storm force winds extend outward up to 105 miles, mainly northeast of the southeast part of the center. The estimated minimum central pressure is 29.74 inches. Shortly after 1 p.m. on September 21st, RCIPS officers were called to a report of an industrial incident on Valencia Drive in Bontown. Police say a man had been injured after a vehicle collapsed on him. He was found unresponsive. Police and emergency services attended the scene, and the man was carried to the Cayman Islands Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Department of Environmental Health and the Cayman Islands Fire Service crews were working to resolve an incident at the Georgetown landfill Sunday morning. DEH attendant at the landfill gate detected the fire around 7:30 a.m. Sunday morning. Fire crews arrived on the scene shortly afterwards and found some smoke issuing from an area near the top of the landfill. Environmental health and fire crews used mechanical excavators, pumps, and hoses to dampen down the area prior to removing hot materials from the top to be spread for wetting and cooling. In addition, fire officers are utilizing water monitors, which are aimable, controllable, high-capacity water jets, as well as thermal imaging cameras to detect hotspots. The DEH assistant director says although small amounts of smoke were visible during this process, there was no immediate risk to public safety. Officials add that Sunday's incident is located in an area of the landfill unrelated to last week's incident. In regional news, following a church service last week Sunday to signal unity to comrades, Dr. Peter Phillips and Peter Bunting on this Sunday shared the platform at the People's National Party annual conference in Jamaica in a show of unity. Bunting challenged Phillips for the presidency of the party but lost by 76 votes when the dust settled on September 7th. Minutes after he commenced his speech at the packed National Arena, Phillips said the party had a challenging year but has emerged stronger for it. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Karsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. More than 20,000 jobs worldwide are at risk after the collapse of the British travel firm Thomas Cook. Up to 500,000 stranded holidaymakers have been repatriated to their home countries, including Britain and Germany. The world's oldest travel company, Thomas Cook, failed to secure the investment it needed to stay in business. The French medicines watchdog and the pharmaceuticals firm Servier are going on trial accused of fraud over a drug that's believed to have killed more than 500 people. Prosecutors say regulators delayed banning the anti-diabetes pill mediator despite strong safety concerns. A primary school classroom has collapsed in the Kenyan capital Nairobi, killing at least 7 children. About 60 were injured and 2 are said to be in a critical condition. A school official has blamed the authorities for undermining the school structure by building a sewer underneath. A splinter faction of the Nigerian militant group Boko Haram has released a video which appears to show 2 men in orange jumpsuits being put to death. The so-called Islamic State West Africa province says the victims are Christian soldiers from the Nigerian army. Their identity has not been confirmed. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has repeatedly declined to rebut assertions that he failed to declare a potential conflict of interest when money was given to an American businesswoman 6 years ago. He was Mayor of London at the time. The Sunday Times newspaper says Jennifer Akuri received $156,000 from mayoral organisations and travelled on trade missions with Mr Johnson. The brother and close aide of Algeria's ex-president Abdelaziz Bouteflika has gone on trial along with 2 former chiefs of the powerful secret services. They're accused of conspiring against the state. And that's the BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by Sagicor. Let us put a smile on your face. Call 949-8211.
Think about something that makes you happy. Did it make you smile? We know it did. Because that's what we do at Sagicor. Put smiles on our clients' faces every day. With a large range of products to cover your family, it's no wonder most locals choose Sagicor for their life insurance needs. Serving the community for over 25 years. Let us put a smile on your face. Call your Sagicor advisor today.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiokman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio K-Man is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio K-Man.
Are your appliances in need of an upgrade? Then you have to check out the big LG appliance sale at Brand Source Home Gallery. This week only, Brand Source has reduced all LG appliances by 20%. That's right, 20% off all LG appliances. Come in and check out our 4-piece kitchen packages in beautiful black stainless steel or regular stainless steel. Or perhaps you need a new washer or dryer. Discover why LG has the most J.D. Power Awards for home appliances and receive 20% off at Brand Source Home Gallery in Industrial Park. Sale ends September 28th. Call 623-5000 for details.
Aw, look at you, killing it at this parenting thing. Ever had a moment where you had a horrible day at work and you overindulged with alcohol? Or when you spoke out loud about how badly you needed a drink, not realizing your child was in the back seat? Parents, you have a significant influence in your children's decision to experiment with alcohol and other drugs. Let's reduce underage drinking and substance use amongst our youth. It starts with one conversation. This message is brought to you by the National Drug Council and Radio K-Man. For more information, log on to ndc.ky.
The Weather Report is proudly sponsored by Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Thinking of decorating your home or your apartment? Then Super Stitch is the place for all your household needs. We have sheets, comforters, bathroom accessories, curtains, and a whole lot more. We are the original curtain store with curtains for every room in the house. Some special now-in curtains for $10 a panel. Yes, just $10 a panel. Come see us today at Super Stitch. Super Stitch, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
A pleasant good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 82 degrees. Relative humidity is 86%. Barometric pressure 29.92 inches and rising. The winds are calm. Overnight low temperature was 80 degrees. Synopsis indicate a broad area of low pressure across the Western Caribbean will continue to support light winds and seas along with isolated showers and possible thunder across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours. Radar images show isolated showers around the Cayman area moving towards the north-northeast. The National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida is issuing advisories on tropical storms Jerry and Karen. Tropical Storm Carrie was located at 14.2 north, 64.4 west. It's about 225 miles west-northwest of St. Vincent and moving northwest at 8 miles per hour with a maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. Tropical Storm Jerry was located at 27.8 north, 67.7 west. It's about 355 miles south-southwest of Bermuda and moving north-northwest at 7 miles per hour with a maximum sustained winds of 65 miles per hour. These storms pose no threat to the Cayman Islands. Now the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers and possible thunder, and showers will be locally heavy at times, and temperatures will be in the upper 80s today. Your winds will be light and variable, and seas will be smooth to slight with wave heights of less than 2 feet. And the forecast for tonight calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers and possible thunder. Showers will be locally heavy at times and temperatures dipping to the upper 70s tonight. Your winds will be 5 to 10 knots tonight, and seas will be smooth to slight with wave heights of less than 2 feet. Low tide will be at 11:11 this morning and a high tide this evening at 6:10. The sun will set this evening at 6:19 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6:15. And the outlook is calling for a broad area of low pressure over the northwest Caribbean is expected to linger, supporting an increase in cloudiness and showers across the Cayman area from tomorrow afternoon. And that's the very latest on your weather report.
Superstitch Sewing and Fabric Center was a proud sponsor of the Weather Report, your one-stop shop for all of your household items, craft items, jewelry, beads, and decorations, and much more. Call Superstitch at 949-2833 or email customer care at superstitch.com.ky.
Thinking of decorating your home or your apartment? Then Superstitch is the place for all your household needs. We have sheets, comforters, bathroom accessories, curtains, and a whole lot more. We are the original curtain store with curtains for every room in the house. Some special known curtains for $10 a panel. Yes, just $10 a panel. Come see us today at Superstitch. Superstitch, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
We at The Wharf have the only multi-purpose conference room in Cayman, providing high-speed internet and all state-of-the-art audio and visual, and are now open and ready for your meetings and events. Multiple wireless microphones and Dolby surround speakers make your presentations on the giant screen clear and interactive. Imagine your meetings with a view, a full bar and kitchen on site where all your needs are cared for, just a few steps away from the Caribbean Sea. All F&B will be customized to your preference. Call 949-2231 or email info@wharf.ky to start planning your waterfront meeting now.
Always ensure that food preparation utensils are washed with a strong detergent and rinsed in hot water in the event that they have made contact with flood water. Boil silverware for 10 minutes and immerse glass, porcelain, china, and plastic items in a solution of hot water and 10% chlorine bleach before use. For more post-hurricane food safety tips, visit DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Top of the morning to you. Let's take a look at traffic. On Shamrock Road, busy traffic. On Linford-Pearson Highway, bumper to bumper. Expect slight delays this morning as you're heading down to Georgetown. Off of the Linford-Pearson Highway and Agnes Way, traffic is busy. And steady traffic on Crew Road. And traffic is moderate on Huldah Avenue and Thomas Russell Way. Owen Roberts Drive, traffic moving along light to moderate. And a moderate flow of traffic on Godfrey Dixon Way and Eastern Avenue. And no major issues on Shedden Road as traffic is flowing pretty good, as well as on Edward Street. From the West Bay 4-way stop, moderate flow of traffic in both directions. And on North End Road, traffic flowing moderately. That's the very latest on your traffic. Remember, when you see a school bus with lights flashing red and a stop sign, stop means stop. Have a good morning.
Pizza. Everybody loves pizza. And now at Subway, you can customize your personal pizza with Subway's always fresh ingredients. Maybe you're a carnivore and want to pile your pizza with fresh pepperoni, chicken, or salami. Or for the veggie lovers, add fresh tomatoes, onions, spinach, and olives. There's so many great combinations. Pop into any of Subway's 7 locations and customize your fresh, hot pizza with all your favorite fresh ingredients. Now, with 3 locations open 24 hours. Subway. Eat fresh.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Cayman's tourism market is thriving, and the fastest growing segment is vacation home rentals. As a vacation homeowner, Beach Living can help you maximize your share. Beach Living provides a range of management services, multi-channel marketing, guest liaison, check-in, check-out, staging and photography, professional cleaning and maintenance, accounting and tax submissions. Save time and maximize your vacation rental revenue. Call Beach Living on 623-0059 or visit beachlivingci.com.
Looking for a new car? We can give you a zillion reasons to switch to electric. They cost you less to run. They helps to save the planet. They are free charging stations all across Grand Cayman. Low maintenance needs. They're quiet both inside and out. And they're the future. But most of all, the government has reduced custom duties on electric cars. For cars valued below $30,000, you now don't have to pay anything. Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure Facebook page for more information on electric cars. The Breeze Fusion is back Saturday, November 2nd.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO. Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the Record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, we have the Honorable Mary Lawrence, former Speaker of our Legislative Assembly. Also with us, Dr. Steve McFeel. And we also have MLA, Councillor and Acting Minister, Mr. Austin Harris. And we're here today talking about this date in history, the 23rd of September. And that would have been the 23rd of September in 1959, where we celebrated we had the first general election to be held after the Cayman Islands received its first written constitution. Now, earlier we talked about the petition. We spoke briefly about the 1957 petition as well, but we want to start, and we want to catch those of our listeners who are still in their vehicles, maybe taking their children to school, so that they can hear some of this history as well. Yeah. To talk about the 1948 petition that preceded everything.
August 1948 letter.
Yes, that's and that's really the chronological order of the women's suffrage movement in the Cayman Islands.
Precisely.
And certainly for those, particularly school children who are in the cars, learning a bit of Cayman history right now, as Dr. McFeel pointed out. The 19th of August, 1948, 24 Georgetown women signed and sent a letter to the then commissioner that they intended to exercise their fundamental right to vote on the election in that day. But they were told they were not allowed to because they didn't have the constitutional right to vote in the Cayman Islands. That led 9 years later, they say Cayman time moves a little slow, but 9 years later, the 29th of May, 1957, the now historical 358 women, including some of those who had signed the original letter in 1948, put their names to a petition, which was then laid before the Legislative Assembly of Justices and Vestrymen, and that petition demanded women's political right to vote. That preceded a select committee in the Legislative Assembly, which recommended unanimously to grant the petition, and on the 8th of December 1958, the sex disqualification and removal law was signed into law, and that, of course, gave women, for the first time in the Cayman Islands, the right to vote in this country.
Precisely.
So it's a bit of history trivia, but certainly I'm sure my two distinguished colleagues here can give us the breakdown of the events that took place in both 1948 and 1957 much better than I can.
Okay. Doc?
Well, the 1948 letter actually, it wasn't just a 1948 letter. Caymanian women had been agitating for their right to vote from the 1920s. Remember now that it was not long before that. It was, I think, it was in the 1930s or 1950s that the Jamaican women had gotten the right to vote, and also in 1920s, the UK women had gotten the right to vote, and of course the first women who ever got the right to vote in a parliament were the people from New Zealand. The women from New Zealand got the right to vote in the 1800s. So they were also worried about the fact that so many men were away at sea, and there were a lot of positions that had to be filled by the men, and they were just and really in those days the merchant class men were dominated the legislative assembly, and they were worried about that too, because they were making laws, and they had ignored the women, and by the way, from 1948, I would say from the 1940s to the 1960s, women were the best educated at the time. Mm-hmm. They were the ones that had stayed into the private schools. Yes. The CCC, the Seventh-day Adventist school, private school, and also the government, the Presbyterian schools. Mm-hmm. And so they were emerging with the best education, and they were manning some of the best jobs in the Cayman Islands at the time. Remember now, as Mrs. Dr. Lawrence said, and the speaker said that the petition was signed by some of the Marion family. Mm-hmm. But remember now, the Marion women ran the Marion Empire behind the scenes. Yes. They were the ones that had the administrative work behind the scenes, and people like Miss Ina Watler, people call her Miss Ina Royal. We used to call her Miss Ina Royal because Mr. Royal Watler. And by the way, women were trying to move away from the fact that they were their husband's property. Mm-hmm. You know, in those days, women had to sign their names, Mrs. Austin Harris. I see. That means that you were... They had no individual identity. No individual identity.
I mean, the petition is signed Mrs. Carla Marion.
Yes. Yeah. So that was it was more than just a petition to vote. Mm-hmm. It was declaring their right to be persons, to be equal with the men, and in every respects. In every respects.
Now, Cayman is considered, I say is rather than was, but certainly is considered a matriarchal society, and it's very much for that reason that you pointed out.
Has always been. It still is.
Yes, that's right. That's why I said it still is. It is, not was. And I think the reason, as you pointed out, it was matriarchal because the men, the Caymanian men, were at sea. They spent the majority of their time at sea. So if you ask the question, what are the issues on the ground in Cayman, what is important for the Cayman Islands, women were the ones who had that information because, as you pointed out, they were the ones who were running the country.
That's right. They were the ones who built the homes. Yes. They were the ones who look after the children. They were the ones who educated the children. They were the ones who like we say, held fort. And when you look at modern writings from now, like Consuelo Ebanks, the Southwell years. Yes, you can see the role that women played from the 1920s and in Cayman, because remember now, it wasn't just only Southwell that men went to sea. Men went to sea on the Swannies ships. They went to sea in the First and Second World War. They were in the Navy. They were in the Merchant Marines. They went to Mosquito Key. That took a lot of men. Sure. All the schooners were filled with men. Sure. Were crewed with men, and mostly a lot of the men were the ones who perished at sea. Mm-hmm. And so it became a matriarchal society, not by choice, but by events.
Yes, a necessity.
Necessity too. And so women were not only just exerting their right for political freedom. Mm-hmm. It was also the freedom to be recognized just as if as a man. And today, I beg the question though. Today, since that event happened since those events happened in 1948 and in 1959. What has happened to the women since that time?
Lost their voice?
What has happened to the women since that time?
Well, I don't know if they've lost their voice, because we were discussing earlier on a very interesting statistic in terms of the constituencies that exist in today's single-member constituencies world.
Lost their political voice.
And women continue to outpace the men.
Precisely. But just in numbers.
Yes.
But just in numbers. But what about equal opportunity, equal pay? What about equal opportunity and equal pay? Mm-hmm. Because you have a lot of women now who are graduating from university with high honor degrees and come back and can't find jobs in the men's establishment. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
that is a problem.
If we can share this statistic then with the our listening and viewing audience, and this comes from the elections website, the percentage male-female electors by district, and this is for the 1st of July 2019 and the official register of electors. And of the over 21,000 registered voters, women registered voters comprise 53%, while male comprise 47%. And in every constituency, women outnumber men. Now, the question is, there we see, again, Doc, we talk about the numbers. When we take that and we compare that to the composition of the membership in our legislative assembly,
we still only have 3 women.
Yes. Why distortion?
3 among
there?
19.
Yes.
But I think also, though, I mean, we whilst it is a very significant question to ask, it's also a global question. I think globally, parliaments across the world are around about less than 20%. Female participation. In the Cayman Islands is around about 7%. But the question to be asked and the conversation to be engaging is why? Particularly against the backdrop that there are more female voters than there are registered voters than there are men. But what is the reason behind why fewer and fewer women are declaring themselves as candidates, and also likewise even those that declare as candidates? We go back to, I think, 1959. There were 4 women on the ballot, but none of them were successful at the polls. So the subsequent follow-on question is, why aren't they not running? But also, what is the reason why, in many cases, they aren't winning either? And I think to have those kind of conversations might shed some light as to why we are where we are, but also give some indication as to where perhaps we may be in the future. And I don't proclaim to know the answers to that, but I think if we're going to have a conversation, those are 2 excellent starting points upon which to begin.
Yep. And the other question I want to know is, why are they in jobs that they are more qualified than the men, and they're not receiving equal pay, equal wages, equal salary.
Well, I think the most recent, I think it was a labor force survey, shows that gap is getting tighter. But to your point, it still indicates that there is that discrimination level at salaries as well as positions, women compared to men. I think in the Cayman Islands, though, in fairness, we talk about the chronological history of women's suffrage starting in 1948 that led, of course, to the 1957-58 petition, and, of course, the 1959 election, which there were 4 female candidates nominated. But we also have the Gender Equality Law 2011 that came from that history, and it seeks to eliminate discrimination in employment, training, and recruitment on the basis of sex, marital status, or otherwise. Now, yes, we have a long way to go, but I think it's important also to recognize, I think, as that old Virginia Slims commercial used to say, we've come a long way, baby, as well. Yeah. Women's rights in the Cayman Islands has grown significantly. But I will also agree that there's much further that we can go, and certainly I bow in this instance to Madam Speaker for her opinions on the subject.
Well, we talked about the men and the way the women ran this country. I'm going to go back to that. There were times when, despite the fact that we had 47 people serving as vestrymen and justices in this country, the House couldn't sit because they didn't have a quorum. Mm-hmm. They would have to go out on the street and commandeer someone to come in to fill a seat. The problem with women and men, although we say that we were in charge and we did things on our own in Cayman, and we did. My family, I come from a family of very independent-minded women. But by and large, even so, women sort of gave in to the idea that when the man came home, he was a man of the house, and he was in charge. And although it might only have been for a short time, their their running of affairs was, they would even say, "You would tell your dad to come home, put it on you." We sort of shelved our authority in a lot of areas. But when it came to when the men came home from sea, when we started working on the development of women's rights in this country, we had men who did not believe, and men who still do not believe, that women have the right to hold an equal position with them.
Yes.
We have it in the business sector. And one of the things we did here was when women went out to help develop this country, the government and the community made no provisions to fill the gap that they left in terms of children and home.
Mm-hmm.
So women, even today, they go to work, they get up in the morning, and I have done this demonstration for people. You get up in the morning, you get ready to the baby throws up, the baby messes up, you got to start all over again, you got to pack, you got to get the children ready for school, you got to get them in the road for the buses to pick them up, you got to do all of this. The husband puts on his necktie and his nice shirt, you stayed up till 12 o'clock ironing, and he gets in his car and he drives to work. He gets there, he can talk about football with his friends when he gets there. You get there, you don't have a soul to talk to about the fact that the school is going to call you to come pick up the child you sent to school sick, or the baby is going to have to go to the doctor. We don't make any provision for women to function in the society as a part of the business sector of it. And in the community, and when it comes to politics, that was one area in the Cayman society that men held on to for dear life. And they still do. I'm sorry, they still do. And women aid and abet that fact by not voting for women. When you put a woman out there, I hear complaints all the time. Women's rights are, nobody's talking for women. Well, we didn't put them in the house to talk for women. We don't have, and the women we put there don't speak up for us that much either. We don't have, our voice is not loud. It is not heard. When that 1959 election took place, women were a lot more vocal in politics then than they are now. We have abandoned that. It's as though it's an area we can be engineers, we can be doctors, we can be lawyers, but when it comes to politics, we back away from it. It's like an area that we feel that we should not enter. And too many women don't even consider it, and the women who consider it are ostracized in the society. And don't tell me they're not. Up until the last election, I listened to women who put on their shoes and went out there to run, being shredded in the community.
Yes.
Every little thing that they had ever done. I mean, how many times did I listen to, "You better go home, take care of your children"? Sure, I had a big family. You should go home, take care of your children. Mr. Lawrence, why you don't make your wife go home, take care of your children?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence, you make her control you or what? Make her go home, take care of your children. Over and over and over. It was like, I could write, I could teach, I could do anything, but don't go into politics. That belongs to us.
Okay, we have to take a commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned for the record, and this discussion will continue after this short commercial break.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Have you seen the latest? Cayman has been ranked the most expensive place to live. It's time to buy smart. It's time to buy Ropers. Find everything for your home and kitchen at low prices at Ropers. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Clean up your spending with Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Ropers Janitorial also offers complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511.
I'm going to Vant Motors to test drive the new 7-seater Rush.
They have some really sweet deals going on now, not true?
Yep, on SUVs. And they sweeten the deal by giving you a warm oven-baked cookie with each test drive.
Better test drive more than one, just to be sure.
Take a test drive for a sweet surprise this month at Vant Motors. Test drive any SUV and receive a freshly baked cookie. It's our way of saying thanks for dropping by to check out our huge sale on every SUV in stock. Save up to $4,400 during Vant's summer SUV sale. That's every SUV in stock on sale for thousands off or cash back. Sweeten the deal only at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
I can do this.
We believe in you.
Each day brings hope.
Every day, millions of people celebrate their recovery from addiction and mental illness while others begin their journey. Be a part of it. Share your strength, support, and hope. Join the Voices for Recovery. Together, we are stronger.
Join the Voices for Recovery and attend one of our upcoming workshops to learn how you can support someone impacted by substance abuse. District workshops will be offered during the month of September in West Bay, Georgetown, and East End. For further information, contact the Department of Counseling Services at 949-8789.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Discussion here with Honorable Speaker, Honorable Mayor Lawrence, MLA, Councillor and Acting Minister, Mr. Austin Harris, and Dr. Steve McFeel. And we're talking about the 60th anniversary of celebrating the first election in the Cayman Islands held after our Constitution. Dr. McFeel, earlier you mentioned about when we were talking about the 1948 petition, and we're going to share that later on with our audience as well. And in speaking,
if I could just offer a comment
sure.
to the remarks made by the Honourable Speaker
go right
prior
ahead.
to the break.
Sure.
Whilst I certainly will agree with her that the voices of women, whether it be within the Legislative Assembly or perhaps those on the outside without, could be louder. I don't want to necessarily give the impression that the women that we do have in office today are anything considered as quiet, because certainly I need to give credit to the three women that make up the Legislative Assembly member role now, starting, of course, with the Honourable Minister of Education, the Honourable Juliana O'Connor-Connolly, the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, the Honourable Tara Rivers, and, of course, my colleague, Councillor Barbara Connolly.
Yeah.
And again, with the greatest of respect, having only 2 years under my belt and certainly not knowing the significant historical context, but within this government, the voices of those three women, particular to women's concerns, gender equality, and so on, they're very loud with their expectations, and so should they be. But I don't want the perception to be taken that the women that do make up the members of the Legislative Assembly now are quiet. They certainly are not.
And we won't target the government this morning in that regard. We won't. And we also have to give credence. Madam Speaker, was one of those in our Legislative Assembly who ensured that those voices were heard.
Absolutely.
And at times when voices needed to be controlled, they were controlled as well.
Well, one of the things I found very strange was when the former Minister of Education published a list of women who had made a difference in the Cayman community. I was omitted from that list. I am not on the poster, and I am not mentioned in the film. As a former speaker and only independent speaker in the Cayman Islands, elected from the people to serve with no political strings attached, I am not on that poster, and I am not mentioned in that film.
Was it an oversight, or did you ever ask? I'm curious because certainly that is definitely an error.
I asked, and I was given. And everybody looked at me like, "Why are you asking those kind of questions?" But they asked the same question.
It's your entitled right.
As a speaker of a former Speaker of the House, why is my picture in the Legislative Assembly like other speakers are?
Why is it not in the Legislative Assembly?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I have to ask
speakers,
that same question.
Like past legislators and past exco members, why her name is not?
I will tell you what I was told there. I was told recently that I didn't pick a picture. Well, nobody asked me to pick a picture.
Well, again,
we're going to pick that picture and take it down there.
My thing on it is this. It was published in, and it's being repeated, it's being circulated again now in conjunction with what we're doing today, the poster and the film. They had time to correct it if they wanted to correct it. But, and it's not, I don't consider it a personal thing against me. What I consider it is a piece of history that has been lost.
No, absolutely. Indeed.
And my 4 years in that house, I don't think will be repeated in a very long time in history, because I don't think any government going in there has the nerve to elect someone from the community again who is independent. The speaker, even the present speaker, as vociferous as he can be, still owes his allegiance to the present government and the present premier.
And, speaking of it, we certainly don't want to miss that part of our history. We resoundingly, and rightfully so, we criticize others who are not Caymanians, who write our history and make mistakes and omit things. But here we have the opportunity to make sure that we get it correctly.
No, absolutely.
Done correctly.
Absolutely. I can certainly pledge here this morning that any errors particular to the Legislative Assembly, pictures or otherwise, I maintain, I think, a very positive relationship with the present Speaker of the House. I spent a lot of time in the Legislative Assembly serving on a number of committees, but I can certainly pledge to you this morning, Mrs. Lawrence, whatever that omission was, I would make positive strides to have that addressed quickly.
Yeah.
Well, what I want to emphasize here today is that women who actually speak out and say what has to be said in this community are ostracized, not just by men, but by other women. In fact, a lot by other women. I will tell you what, the very first time I ran in politics was in 1968. An old lady came to my house and she says, Ms. Lawrence, I came to tell you I'm going to vote for you. I said, well, you don't have to tell me that. Your vote is private. You don't have to tell me that. She said, well, I want you to know I'm going to vote for you. She said, but you're not going to get elected, I said, really? I said, why? She says, you'll never get elected in Boddentown. Not just in this election. You'll never get elected in Boddentown. I said, oh, why? She said, because we are like crabs in a barrel. If we see someone coming out, she said, you got a bottle of crab. I had a bag of a pan of crabs right down there. She said, you see those crabs in there? Watch. See that one trying to get out? Everybody's going to get him and pull him down. She says, you are the smartest woman this town has produced, but they will never elect you because they do not want you to climb out of that barrel. And she was in her 80s at that time, and I was a young girl. We're
going to take a commercial break, but I want to set the stage for when we return. Dr. McPhee was talking about adult suffrage, and adult suffrage in Jamaica took place on the 20th of November, 1944. Prior to that, the right to vote was determined by the amount of wealth or property a man had, and women were not allowed to vote at all. The new system extended voting rights to adults irrespective of their race, gender, or social class. November 20th, 1944. Then we see the petition in 1948 from the Cayman Islands.
Yes,
my question is, and we'll answer it when we come back from the break, I'd like to get an answer, is do we believe that this activity in Jamaica, this historic moment in Jamaica where adult suffrage was extended in 1944, had anything to do with the 1948 impetus here. And the other question is, if, as we say, and as we know, that the Cayman Islands were governed as if we were a part of Jamaica, why did that 1944 act in Jamaica that extended adult suffrage, why was that not applicable to the Cayman Islands? When we return, we will get those answers from our panel here on For the Record. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
In 1996, Rotary Club Central led the way initiating a disaster fund to prepare and assist our community toward recovery. The Rotary Clubs of the Cayman Islands then expanded this valuable instrument, the Rotary Cayman Disaster Fund. Thereafter, Rotary District 7020, a group of 86 clubs over 10 countries in 16 islands across the Northwest Caribbean, grew this idea, the Rotary District 7020 Disaster Fund. Today, this Rotary Central idea has worked relief and recovery, assisting communities throughout this region. Rotary, with you before, during, and after. Rotary, connecting the world.
At Logic, we make things better for our customers. It's why we're offering free Boost Wi-Fi. With Boost, you get improved Wi-Fi connectivity everywhere in your home, so there's no more dead zones. The only people we're not making this better for is parents. Because now, with seamless Wi-Fi in every room in your home, go to your room isn't really the punishment it used to be. Sorry about that. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
Support our port, support our tourism.
The cruise berthing facility will be paid for by the cruise passengers who use it, and not by our people or our government. This is a win for Cayman. Support the port. Support our tourism.
Looking forward, looking bright. Support our port, support our tourism.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the Record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Honorable Mayor Lawrence, MLA and Acting Minister Mr. Austin Harris, and Dr. Steve McField. Folks, my question before the break. Who wants to start? Madam Speaker, you?
I'd let
Dr.
McField go ahead because he has some interesting facts.
Yeah, I just want to share with my colleagues here that it was from 1934 to 1949 that women in Jamaica had the right to vote, but only in local elections. And the age to vote had to be 25, while the male counterpart age only had to be 21. And in both cases, both for the men and for the women, literacy was required. So a literacy test was required. So you can imagine in Jamaica, only the educated women in Jamaica could vote, and they had to be 25 years old. It was not until 1945 that women in Jamaica actually won the suffrage. So that was 1 year before the Caymanian women wrote their letter saying that they had the right to vote too. So you can see what happened in Jamaica what transpired in Jamaica.
I'm not interrupting you, but what was the date that they got that right in 47?
And I don't have the date, but I know it was in 1947 that they won the suffrage in Jamaica.
Because it was August in 48 that they, and you have to understand too that petition that was, or the letter that was written in 48 didn't just happen that morning that somebody got a typewriter out, which didn't exist here. This was something they had thought about and worked on for some time before they actually brought it to fruition that day.
Correct. And like in the Cayman context, you had the 1948 letter asking for the right to vote, but it wasn't until 1957, 9 years later, that the actual petition took rise as well. So, and I think to Dr. McField's point, even prior to 1948 to the 1920s, women were agitating for their right to vote from then as well. So it's been a long time coming.
Well, I like the petition, and it says, "Would this privilege is denied us by the officials in charge of the election. We shall demand the government give just reason for making of no effect the laws it has sworn to uphold."
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out also that when we talk about granted for Jamaica in 1944, that was when the act was passed.
Yes.
And then the election would have followed. After
yes,
that.
right.
So that's why you would have the act in 1944 and then the actual voting taking place
1947.
Yes.
But listen to this. You were asking why in Jamaica, since they had gotten it in Jamaica, in a law, why it didn't apply for here since we were administered by Jamaica. But as this Madam Speaker had said, laws, although the legislature under the 1863 Act, Cayman Act, was given the right to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of Cayman. The laws in Jamaica did not apply to Cayman unless they were transmitted here by law. The legislature made laws specifically for Cayman Islands, as they made laws for Jamaica. In other words, the Jamaican laws did not automatically apply to us.
Yes.
Well, what the Jamaican legislature did was approve the laws that the Cayman legislature made.
Yes.
We made our own laws here,
Yes.
and then they were sent to Jamaica for approval.
Yes.
By the governor there. But the laws of Jamaica did not apply to us because there's a little bit of shady area here in which we were annexed to Jamaica.
Yes.
We were not actually
part of Jamaica.
Yeah.
We were next to Jamaica for governing purposes, not for regular.
The terminology that they used was basically we were governed as if we were a part of Jamaica.
Yes. So and we didn't have that. Even in the early years, it took a long time when they made a law here. We'd go ahead and use the law like we had passed it, like it had been recommended or signed by Jamaica. But sometimes it took a long time for it to come back to Cayman after it was sent there for signature.
Yeah. I believe we have a legible text of the petition, the 1948 petition. Can we share that with our audience before we go to our headline news at 9:00?
I'll be happy to, OC. Let me just pull it up here. I want to thank the Celebrate Cayman office for being an excellent resource.
Excellent job. Ms. Cara, Mr. Alfonso, and the crew are doing. Yes.
Indeed. August 19th, 1948. Letter written to the Commissioner of the Cayman Islands. It says, "Dear Sir, we, the undersigned residents of the District of Georgetown, having examined and obtained legal advice on the Constitution of the Cayman Islands, find nothing therein which denies women the fundamental human right to take part in deciding who shall govern us. Therefore, we declare that it is our intention to exercise our constitutional right to vote today, August 19th, 1948, according to our conscience, in the election of vestrymen for the District of Georgetown. Should this privilege be denied us by the officials in charge of the election, we shall demand this government give just reasons for making of no effect the law it has sworn to uphold." And of course, it was signed by a number of persons. I can attempt to give their names. Obviously, they've got their signatures on file.
Mr. McFeel, sorry, Dr. McFeel has his text is very legible when it comes to the names, if he wants to read them out.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have that, Edoc, available? The signatures on the 1948 petition.
48 petition. The signatures on the 48 petition that you gave me to read, not this one.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, the original petition.
The original petition?
Yeah, that you just gave me and I copied. I copied the text, but I didn't copy the names.
Okay.
Well, while he looks for that, Madam Speaker, why don't we share with our audience the 1957 petition giving women the right to vote, and those women who are still alive today, the names of those. I think we have enough time that we can cover all of those names before.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. There's 18 of those ladies that are still alive out of the 358.
And we want to pay tribute to them today as well. Yes.
We have Mrs. Iva Johnson Good. That's Sir Vassal's sister. And Mrs. Jan Lee Clifford, Mrs. Jen Hennins, Miss Georgette Ebanks. Everybody knows Miss Georgette because she's a frequent caller in here. Mrs. Francine Jackson, I think she's going to be on the show this afternoon. Her and Miss Iva Johnson, good both, and I think we need to give them, as the young people talk about, big them up a little bit.
Yes.
I think Councillor Conley will also be.
Yes, she will be here. Yes.
And Gloria Whitaker, Madge Ebanks, Carmen Conley, and that's Miss Carmen from East End. Everybody knows her. Isla Rich, the former education officer in the Cayman Islands, who's 97 now. And still trucking along. Mrs. Ethel Ebanks, Althea Powell, Peggy Bodden, Viola Ebanks, Donald Sybil McLaughlin, the national hero of the Cayman Islands. Ariel's Christian. You know, Mrs. Christian is alive in the Pines home. She's 102 or 103 right now. Wow. And her brain clock's as good as mine and yours.
Great.
Asley Robinson and Brenda Algar Wood. Mrs. Algar Wood, of course, was the founder of Wood's Furniture with her husband, Jim. And they started that in Bodden Town before they came to Georgetown with it. They were business people up there first. So that's the list of those who are still alive. And most of them still play a very active role in the community.
Yep. Doc, were you able to find those lists? Okay. Madam Speaker.
I get to read all of them.
Yes. You're the one with the best eyes.
She has a magnifying glass to complement that.
No, the magnifying glass doesn't work. 2 pairs of glasses works better. Look at that. That's how we get it done.
That's the original bifocal.
That's the original bifocal. We got Mrs. Olive Hines. Remember I told you she was at Grand Old House and she rode her bicycle down here. She would ride her bicycle into town and everybody on the road, she would stop and tell them that they were doing this. Mrs. Valda Bodden, that's Mr. Captain Theo's wife. And like I said, these number of these names are people whose husbands were serving in government. And here they are challenging their authority. Literally, that's what they're doing. Ermine Marion, Dr. Marion's sister. Carolyn Hines. Pansy Thompson. Pansy moved to the States. I'm not sure she's still alive. Sunbeam Thompson. She used to drive a cab in Georgetown. Mrs. Carla Marion. And here again we have this thing where women signed their husband's name and add Mrs. in front of it. That was a common practice then. You were Mrs. Montgomery Wood or Mrs. Willow Wood. You were never had your own name. Mrs. Carla Marion. Mrs. Georgette Hurlston. Everybody knows Miss Georgette. Mrs. Violet Thompson. Miss Thompson lived on North Church Street, and she helped to raise Norman Bodden, in fact. Mrs. George Marion, and Mrs. George Marion was a Seventh-day Adventist, and the Seventh-day Adventist did not participate in politics, so for her to put her name on this was quite outstanding.
Mary's mother.
Rose Bodden, Effie Anderson, Darien Marion, Mrs. Winston Watler, and here again you have the husband's name used, but that was Miss Mattie. Remember, she raised Dr. Marion's youngest sister. And Rosalie Marion, Mrs. C.M. Bodden, Vita M. Bodden, Miss Vita, we know who she, Mr. Dowkey's wife, his wife, Mrs. Virginia Bodden, Miss Ina Coe. Ina Coe was Mr. Wilco's wife. They were business people here too.
Comart, yes.
Yeah. Mrs. A.J. Watler, and that was Mr. Rhoda Watler's wife, I think. Miss Ina Marion, she was one of the founders of Triple C. Sylvia Coe, she used to work for them. She worked for them for years and years and years and years.
How many more names do you have, Madam Speaker? Because we have
3.
to
Goldie Banks, she worked for them as well. Mabel, I can't. Granger. Oh, Mrs. Granger. They had the bar, and then Mrs. Oh, I can't read the last. Persian Mary. Yes.
Okay. Wow. We're going to our headline news, folks. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Radio K-Man. Radio K-Man's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Police are investigating after a man is found unresponsive after a vehicle collapses on him shortly after 1 p.m. on September 21st. Police responded to a report of an industrial accident in Boddentown. Police and emergency services attended the scene, and the man was transported to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. The first of 155,000 British tourists are being flown back home after travel agent Thomas Cook collapsed on Monday. The UK's Civil Aviation Authority is coordinating the repatriation, the biggest in peacetime, after the tour operator, quote, ceased trading with immediate effect. Thomas Cook's administration puts 22,000 jobs at risk worldwide, including 9,000 in the UK. And U.S. President Donald Trump has confirmed that he raised the subject of former Vice President Joe Biden and his son in a July phone call with the Ukrainian president. He's facing allegations that he pressured Ukraine to investigate his potential 2020 rival, which he denies. But his admission about the phone call fueled calls for Democrats to launch impeachment proceedings and Congress. A senior Democrat said such a move, quote, may be the only remedy. Those are your headlines. I'm Carsley Fuller.
Radio K-Man, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record in the studio. It is my pleasure to have with me this morning the Honorable Mary Lawrence, former Speaker of our Legislative Assembly, MLA and Councillor, and Acting Minister, Mr. Austin Harris, and resident historian, Dr. Steve McField. We're talking about September the 23rd, a day etched in the political history of the Cayman Islands. 60 years since the first election was held, after we received our written constitution. Now, before we went to the commercial break, the Honorable Speaker read out a list of names of those persons who signed the 1948 petition. I don't know how many of you were listening, and if you were listening attentively, I didn't hear any names like Ebanks. I didn't hear any McFields. I didn't hear any Nixons. I didn't hear any Connors. I didn't hear any Banks. I didn't hear any Smiths. I didn't hear any Moores. I didn't hear any Berries. Why is that? Why was that all of those names were not listed there? But I believe if we go to other documents later on, we will find those names. Can anyone, if either speculate or you may actually know the facts in terms of why the names that I have listed were not included on that, and why later on they may have been included? Mike's open for anyone.
I'm just going to throw it out there, and I leave it for the historians to certainly confirm whether they're right or wrong. But voting rights back when came down to really the size of your wallet. Mm-hmm. You had an obligation to pay. I think it was a poll tax, and if you didn't have that tax paid up, you didn't have a right to vote. In the Cayman Islands, most Caymanians, we recall nostalgically that we were poor people. So the majority of Caymanians were the poor, and they probably would not have been in a position to afford to pay any sort of tax, and as such, they had no voice. That lends me to believe that those that could vote were the merchant class, those who had the money and otherwise saw themselves as the rulers, if not the persons who really were entitled to vote. But I certainly leave that to my more distinguished historian colleagues. Yes. But that's my 2 cents.
Well, it was a little bit more than that, like in Bodden Town. This isn't the merchant class were. Whether it was we talk about the merchant class in Georgetown, but don't you ever get away from the idea that it also existed in the other communities as well. Mm-hmm. And so when you didn't have a written ballot then. When you were going to have an election, they put up blackboards in the town hall, and you went there and you put the name on the blackboard. And if you owed Mr. Biddle, you voted for Mr. Biddle. If you owed Uncle Logan, you voted for Uncle Logan. Because if you didn't, the next morning you didn't have any credit, and you were going to be hungry. So I mean, this is and on a larger scale, we had the same thing in Georgetown. Mm-hmm. The names on this petition, the women on this petition, were mostly business women. They had some of them were their friends, like you had Mrs. Olive Hines, but Mrs. Olive Hines lives on North Church Street in Grand Old House. Mm-hmm. They had people like Miss Georgette. Miss Georgette had just graduated from Triple C School. Mm-hmm. She was one of the first graduates from Triple C School, and of course, there was only one place you could go for employment, and that was Marion's or Dr. Roy's or some, the Comart, Wilco's. These were the places you were going to go to get employment. So you find that people like them, they understood what they were doing, but they also almost were obligated to. I mean, Violet Thompson. Yes. She ran the Marion shoe store.
Yes, right. Mm-hmm. And she also had a store for her own.
She had a little store down at her house. On her house. But by her house. But she ran the Marion shoe store for them. And when you go through the list, you will see they are connected like that. But at the same time, you have to give them credit for coming out there, because although they were women, as I would call it, women of power, they were also, by the very fact that they lived in the Cayman community, subject to the men, and a lot of them had their husbands serving in the government at the present time, at that time, and they were literally challenging their authority. I mean, Ina Marion was sister to all, she was a sister to...
The great Duke and Marion.
Duke and Marion?
Yeah, and she was sister to Duke and Marion, but Duke and Marion's wife...
Yes.
Yeah, they were women who... They were in a particular circle, but they were connected, and the fact that they were challenging the men in their circle, that's what they were really doing. Yeah. They were challenging the men in their circle to get up there and do better. Mm-hmm. And there was no record. I would have liked to have known if there was a record where what did they do when they say, did they not cook dinner for them? Not even. Would this privilege be denied to us by the officials in charge of the election? We shall deem the government we shall demand the government to give just reason for making of no effect how it has of no effect the law it has sworn to uphold. What did they do to follow through on that?
Yes.
What
in this male-dominated in this male-dominated legislature at the time it was then, Miss Violet. I remember she had a little shop down on North Church Street near the graveyard, and she also had two men that she brought from East End. One named Shelburne and Ho. They were brothers, and I remember the story I heard that when she went to East End and she solicited them to come to work for her in her yard because they were machete men. Mm-hmm. That's what we called them in those days. And they said Shelburne was digging up around, taking a pickaxe and digging around the perimeter of their land. Digging it up and said, well, why are you doing that? They say that they're digging up their land to folding it up to take it to Georgetown.
So I heard Shelburne say that myself.
So
he had a piece of land in East End and he liked Georgetown so much he was going to break it down.
Fold it up to take it to Georgetown.
Take the land with him, Georgetown.
Yeah,
but of course we're doing that now, right? We're bringing East End and to create land in Georgetown.
When they came to Georgetown, they had Bellas Hess and Montgomery Ward. And, they had all these women, all these mannequins in the book.
Models
showing the women dresses.
Yes.
So they ordered 2 dresses each for $7 and something. So, in those days, there was no post office boxes and stuff. So when you get a letter, they would call your letter, Austin Harris! Mm-hmm. And everybody would say, if you were in the post office, say, a letter in the post office for you.
Okay.
I'll carry it for him.
I'll carry it for him.
Right.
So they announced to Shelburne and his brother Ho that a package had come for them in the post office. So, they went down to the post office to get the package. And when they went to the post office, they gave them the little slim box with the dresses in it.
Yes.
So when they opened it up, the dresses in it. So they sat down by, in those days the post office was up high because it was low. After they filled in Georgetown, the post office became low like the town hall.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so they were sitting up by the post office on the steps. And Mr. Ernest Spannon was leaving the post office that evening, going home, and was locking the door. Mm-hmm. So he said, Shelburne and Ho, he said, why you all sitting out here for? Your package came this morning. And you say, you got it? Yeah, you say, we got the package, we got the dresses, but you say, we're still waiting for the women to come out because you say, if they can't come out naked, that's why we got the dresses outside. So they can wear it when they come outside.
Okay.
Because you say it was something wrong.
So they attempted to buy 2 women out of the catalog. I want those 2 and those dresses as well.
Okay, we have a caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm very thankful and highly blessed, and I love all this history. I was born in 51, so that means that I was slightly over 8 years old when all them nice women, all them wonderful, smart, determined ladies did all that stuff for us. Good morning, Mrs. Lauren.
Good morning, ma'am.
And good morning, Dr. Matfield.
Morning, ma'am.
And good morning to the councillor, MLA councillor, Mr. Harris.
Good morning to you, ma'am. Thank you for your call.
Yes, sir. Now, it is really you, sir, that I want to talk to a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
A little bit now, but more later.
Yes, ma'am.
I would love for you to give me your number.
Yes, ma'am.
I was taking it down, but I keep so many notebooks that I can't find which one it is that it is in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Please give me your number now then.
Sure. 928 25 62.
Wait now, kind of slow,
Yes, ma'am. 928
Yes.
25
25
62.
62.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to be leaving my number with Susan for you.
Okay.
And then on top of this now, I'm going to make you know the reason why I'm going to be talking to you much, much longer later.
Okay.
This is about a senior who is was born now in 1950.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's over 69 right now. And he is some very desperate help is needed.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying along with some others through the need assessment unit, but not getting through. So I would like for you to call me, and then and then we can arrange then for what we really need to do is to go over to the needs assessment unit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, caller, I want to thank you very much for that. Mr. Harris will certainly be in touch. Time for us to take a commercial break. I believe we have a caller on hold. When we return, we will take that call, so please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Yeah, so that's what shall.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes, Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard. Have you seen the latest? Cayman has been ranked the most expensive place to live. It's time to buy smart. It's time to buy Ropers. Find everything for your home and kitchen at low prices at Ropers. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Clean up your spending with Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Ropers Janitorial also offers complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Work will soon launch Jobs Cayman, an online system that allows registered users to access job postings created by registered employers. This system offers a better approach to facilitate Caymanians in finding employment and allows employers to search for qualified and skilled Caymanians who are seeking employment. For more information on the registration process and what you need to register, visit www.worc.ky. Work, leading the pursuit of full Caymanian employment and economic prosperity for all through service excellence.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We have a caller, but before we go to the caller, two other messages that we received as well. This one says, morning, with regard to the conversation on women. I am a woman, but unfortunately, I think that we are too critical of our own and usually do not vote as much as we should for other women. And another listener wrote and said, it should also be remembered that Mrs. Ethel Cook Borden was told by Commissioner Gerard that, in his opinion, women were excluded from voting. However, it was the Attorney General of Jamaica who said that the 1865 Act did not exclude women. The fact that it did not specifically include them had the same effect. So that was a comment made
the
by
1865 Act says that whoever was in charge of the election should bring all the people. Mm-hmm. It's the same problem that they had in Canada with election to the Canadian legislature when they says persons and they it was that persons
you don't qualify it. Yeah.
Persons were interpreted to mean not women, and so Lord Sankey, that Lord Sankey in the Great Edward case, said that let me see what he said here.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to find that, and we'll grab the caller in the meantime. Caller, we're going to ask each caller to be as brief as possible. We still have some quite a bit of ground to cover in the studio as well. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning. Great conversation this morning. One thing, and this Eric Cook-Borden came up there a minute ago.
Ethel Cook-Borden,
Cook-Borden, yeah. Now, and I think a list that was read out earlier said that she was a candidate in one of the elections. I believe, if I heard it right.
She read in George.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that begs the question. This question. Now, I think our current constitution says that you can't, if you're not a Caymanian, you can't be a candidate. Now, maybe my memory is failing me this morning, but I don't think that she was a Caymanian. Might have been per se as it was perceived in that day, but I think as the law would prescribe now, she might not have been.
I believe those days you only required to be resident in the jurisdiction.
Exactly.
That's
She
it.
was a British subject.
She was a British subject, though.
And resident.
Okay.
She was a British subject. She also was a founder of the Red Cross in Cayman.
Right. I'm aware of all that. Also, I think Austin mentioned something about the poll tax having some connection to this, that the ladies not...
Well, ladies and men, really.
Yeah. Well, ladies. But I don't think the poll tax applied to the ladies.
Quite possibly,
No,
yeah.
it did not apply to women.
Ah, okay. All right.
No, it was $10 a head for men. 10 shillings.
10 shillings.
Okay.
That's it, caller?
That's it. Good conversation. And before I go, hopefully that this can be put in text form. When I say text, I don't mean IT text. I mean on the plain old web exercise paper.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Loxley. Always a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
As I was saying about
yes, Doc.
Lord Sankey in the famous Edwards case in 1920, the same thing about women not having the right to vote and the interpretation of what a person meant. This is what Lord Sankey said when he delivered the judgment for the Privy Council in 1920. He said, exclusion of women from public offices is a relic of days more barbarous than ours. And to those who ask why the word person should include female, the obvious answer is, why should it not?
Yes.
And so he was the one that started the ball rolling in the modern day for women's right to vote in the famous Canadian case of Edwards. And of course, that was picked up in Jamaica and picked up all around the colonies. And so the thing that bothers me in all of this is the effect of the powerful pull of money and the political posturing that we still have, because I wrote something here. I'm trying to find it.
Okay. In the meantime, we have some callers, so we want to try to utilize as much time as possible. Let's grab a caller in the meantime, because we have three callers queued up. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. So MLA, Mr. Harris.
Yes, sir.
Do you have an update on what the government's plans are for the glass house?
I don't, sir.
Yeah, we'll cover that on another show. We really want to restrict the conversation today about the 1959 election. We want to talk about women's right to vote, women's suffrage in the Cayman Islands as well. Let's grab the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
And I'm interested in the answer on the glass house, too.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, the OC. Good morning to Honourable Mary Lawrence. And good morning to Dr. Maxey. Good morning to Emily.
Good.
Mr. Harris.
Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Your talk about it ties in with everything. This is so wonderful conversations, and like the Banks Doctor was saying, that how it just all sort of sat down and maybe use as books in school. So our children are work with it, acting in civics and so forth. With the thing with the money tied into it with the elections, in the 1938 elections in Jamaica, less than 5%, or maybe just about 5%, I think it was, of the population could vote because they had to have an income of at least, I think it was £50 a year. So less than somewhere around 5% voted. It was the same year also. So it ties in with the restrictions on money, but that was put in by the British as a colony. And in the same year also, curiously, Mr. Manley formed this party. The People's National Party was formed that same year, and they started the negotiations from then. It was after the riots from riots with Mr. Bustamante and so forth, becoming so well involved in everything, that that started that move with this universal suffrage, but it took the 6 years to 1944 and they wrote a new constitution for them. And the system, they were unicameral at the time. It was just one member elected from each parish, so it would be 14, and then the rest, it was they're far outnumbered by the nominated and official members at the time.
Everything, yeah.
That was how it was. But anyway, I just thought I'd put that in there. There was restrictions put there too but of course all that changed in 1944, and it made the age 21 years for every Jamaican, that included women. So, and it might have come into effect, as you said, Mr. Markley, by 47. It takes years to negotiate 44 things, and it might not have happened if there's riots, because it was very important what happened with those riots. Won't take up your time to go into that, but thank you all. Listen on.
Thank you very much, caller. One more call before we go to a break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
I would just like to say thanks very much to Mr. O.C. Radio Cayman, and good morning to Lockie that just called. Thanks for the topic, thanks for the panel, and I personally sit at everybody's feet who knows anything, and I sit at all my seniors' feet, and I'm enjoying this morning as like not in a long time. I don't necessarily always listen because I can't find you very easily on my radio dial. But somebody called and said, you better try find it. So I'm glad that I did. And to Miss Mary Lawrence, my town hall, ma'am, my town hall. Thank you very much. I love the topic. Love the topic. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, caller. And we can't leave out Celebrate Cayman as a staff there, in relation to this as well. They're the ones who organized this as well, provided a lot of the material for us to be able to discuss here. Also, one of our listeners has written in and said that this may have been mentioned before, but I just want to pay tribute to a group of 5 spunky teenage girls who signed the petition. They were the first high school graduates in the history of the Cayman Islands and had just graduated from Triple C in 1947. They were Dareen Marin, Ermin Marin, Georgette Hurlston, Pansy Thompson, and Virginia Borden, and this is coming from a former principal of Triple C School as well.
Excellent.
We're going to take a commercial break, Miss Susan. I believe what we're going to do is we're going to close off the phone lines because we still have some important things to discuss, and we want to really get into the meat of the general elections on the 23rd of September 1959 as well. So, folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
In 1996, Rotary Club Central led the way initiating a disaster fund to prepare and assist our community toward recovery. The Rotary Clubs of the Cayman Islands then expanded this valuable instrument, the Rotary Cayman Disaster Fund. Thereafter, Rotary District 7020, a group of 86 clubs over 10 countries in 16 islands across the Northwest Caribbean, grew this idea, the Rotary District 7020 Disaster Fund. Today, this Rotary Central idea has worked relief and recovery, assisting communities throughout this region. Rotary, with you before, during, and after. Rotary, connecting the world.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
Show your support for the scuba diving and water sports industry at the 2019 International Scuba Diving Hall of Fame Gala Induction Ceremony on Friday, October 4th at the Margaritaville Beach Resort. Tickets cost $75 pre-sold or $100 at the door, so get your tickets today. Tickets are available from the offices of the Department of Tourism and the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. The International Scuba Diving Hall of Fame Gala Ceremony, Friday, October 4th. Get your tickets now.
The Breeze Fusion is back Saturday, November 2nd.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO. Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, Honorable Mary Lawrence, former Speaker of our Legislative Assembly, Dr. Steve McPhail, MLA, Councillor and Acting Minister, Mr. Austin Harris. And we're discussing amongst other things that connected with it, the first election held after we received our Constitution, the first election held on the 23rd of September 1959. I also want to remind our listeners and our viewers that this afternoon on Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, this conversation will continue. Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks will be the host then, and we'll be highlighting the living members of those women who signed the petition, their account of signing the petition, and what expectations they had at that point in time. Our honorary guest at that time will be Mrs. Georgette Ebanks. That will be via a phone link. We will also have Mrs. Francine Jackson, Miss Ivor Good, and they will be accompanied by former MLA Miss Lucille Seymour as well this afternoon. So this afternoon's show is positioned to be just as exciting as this morning's show as well. Dr. McPhail, I believe before we went to the break, you were looking for some material on something else. Let me throw the mic over to you.
Oh, I just want to say, and I'll share with you what my thoughts about it is, and I wrote some notes down this last night before I went to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that the effects of the 1958 legislation on women's political consciousness was indeed a radicalizing one. But we need to go further. We've stopped after we got the right to vote. We need to go further. Those women who are able to slip through the hole in the ceiling need to do more to bring the ceiling down to prevent the continuation of the divine duty of men to keep the glass ceiling intact. That's what I want to say, because to me, the working class women are still deemed to be insignificant. and in the labor force. And in politics today, even more so than in the 1940s and 1950s. Nobody cares for them. And when I see them now have to be cleaning the streets twice a year to be able to put food on their tables and raise their children, that really says to me that we have gone backwards. So the full history of this complex and uneven process is yet to be solved. We still have further to go. It seemed to me that after we got the vote, that was the end of it. And we talk about, well, Madam Speaker, we talk about Anna Hulda. We talk about the former Speaker, Ms. the late Edna Moore. We talk about the Ms. McLaughlin, the Speaker. But those are only one or two here and there. Every 10 or 15 years we get one. We need more women in the legislature, for instance. We have 19 members. And when I was given the statistic this morning that 53% of the electorate are women, 53% of the electorate are women, and only less than 1% of the women in the legislature, that really begs the question that women have not really moved anywhere from 1948, 1959, and we need to do more, and women need to do more, because when I hear women say that they come out from the for example, that they come out from university educated and that they're into the masculine field of science and law and medicine and architecture and so forth. This still has not been sought out so that there is no softening of the attitudes that men has against women in this country. We need to do more. We need to push the envelope, and we need to get more women in dominant places. It's not just to name Madam Speaker here and say, well, she was Speaker. We need to have more. And that's my problem that I have.
Okay. We want to go now into the 1959 general election, and want to preface that, Madam Speaker, by talking a little bit about one of our national heroes, Miss Mary Evelyn Wood.
Mary Evelyn Wood was the daughter of Charles Wood and his wife Juletta. And she was born in what we call in Yonder, which is where I live now. And she did what a number of women, and this is something else we haven't given our women credit for, that they would leave this island and go someplace else to work or to try to improve themselves, not just for themselves, but for their families that they left behind. She went to Jamaica and trained as a nurse and worked in the children's home there that was operated by the church for many, many, many years, and worked in the churches there and worked in the community. When she came home to Cayman, she came home with all of that knowledge, particularly with regard, because you have to understand now, she was in Jamaica when all of this was developing concerning their rights to vote and all of that. And so when she came home to Cayman, she brought all of that knowledge with her. And she was one of the loud voices in having women as a part of government. Not just in petition, because she signed that petition, but not just in the matter of petition, but in actual being a part of the government itself. And so when they were organizing the party system in Cayman, she was a powerful force in Bodden Town. And she joined the party that was Mr. Orman and Mr. Warren's party, as they called it, the National Democratic Party. And she was the first woman, not just the first woman elected to Parliament, she was the first woman to be elected on a party ticket. Mm-hmm. She ran as a party representative, and she was elected as a party representative, and she worked in the House as a party representative, and she continued her work in the community. She was a nurse in the, back then we had one doctor in the hospital and two nurses. We had Miss Anne and Miss Sybil Zade. They were the nurses in the hospital.
Is that Nurse Pinky?
Nurse Pinky and Miss Annie. And you know, we had, I think, someone from Jamaica, and then we eventually got Nurse McLaughlin, who came back as a trained nurse in the hospital, maternity-wise. But when you went to the hospital to have a baby, you had to take your nurse with you because you had to have someone to help take care of you and the baby. And so she did a lot of that. After she came back from Cayman, she went to provide personal nursing within the hospital setting for patients, not just maternity patients, but for anyone else, people who went for surgeries and all the rest of it. She went in and she did that. She was a powerful force in the church. She was in the community. She started the theater. She did a lot of concerts and plays and in the community. Mm-hmm. She organized. They had in fact, that little building still stands. It's privately owned now, but they built a little clubhouse of their own where they did their craft work and they sold all their crafts and their jams and jellies and stuff that she made a very famous marmalade. And she was Sunday school teacher, Sunday school superintendent, church elder. She was just Buddentown. She was in Buddentown and she worked in Buddentown. She was a very powerful force in the district, very, very loud voice, very soft-spoken, but a very loud voice when it came to getting things done. And so that she was actually named as a national hero, I thought was a very deserving role for a woman who devoted herself. She never married, she never had children of her own, but she devoted herself to improving a lot of young people and children in the district of Buddentown.
Thank you very much for that, Madam Speaker. Mr. MLA, Acting Minister, what I'd like for you to do now, we have the list of the candidates for each electoral district.
Yes, sir.
We're going to start with the electoral district of West Bay, which, you know, coincidentally was before we went to constituencies, it was the first electoral district, and we always wonder why West Bay was considered the first electoral district. If it had to do with numbers, then Georgetown would have been the first because it had more larger number of voters. But I want you to give us the list of candidates and then go over to the other page and give us the results of the elections in that district as well, which is also there. You found it?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we're going to share that, and then after that, we're going to come to Georgetown, and we will have Dr. Steve McField do Georgetown, and then the sister islands will have Madam Speaker, and then we have to give her Buddentown.
Of course.
Sure.
Certainly. All right. In West Bay, the first elections in 1959, the candidates were Mr. Arthur H. Ebanks. He was nominated by
Rydell
Ebanks and George Hides. We had candidate J. Cadian Ebanks, and he was nominated by Herman Jackson and Benson Ebanks. We had candidate Spurgeon Ebanks, who was nominated by Iola Carmina Ebanks and Dalmain Ebanks. We had candidate William Farrington, who was nominated by Genevieve Smith and Joseph Wells. We have candidate, which is one of four women in that 1959 election, Mrs. Burdell Jackson. And she was nominated by Owen Farrington and Jen Farrington. We had candidate Prentice Powell, who was nominated by Owen Graham Ebanks and Wilbur Wells. And finally, we had John Smith, who was nominated by Stafford Banks and Henry Ebanks.
And the results?
And the results, of course, West Bay returned 3 seats. The winners were Mr. Arthur Harris Ebanks, Captain James Cadian Ebanks, and Captain Thomas William Farrington. Captain Farrington then went on to the position of Executive Council in that administration as well.
Thank you very much,
and
Mr. Harris.
He was the longest-serving member in the Cayman Islands
Father of the
Parliament.
House, yes. Dr. McField.
And this was before the story I told about the boys up in Central electing 3 colored men. Georgetown. So the Georgetown candidates were William Wallace Borden. That would be Churchill's father, and he was nominated by
Ernest's father.
By Gorney A. Panton and Alban Whitaker. And then it was Malcolm Coe, Somali Coe. He was nominated by Alex Hurston and Rex Crichton. And then it was Mrs. Ethel Cook Borden. She was nominated by Mr. Hilton and Harold Forbes. That was Miss Hilton's husband. And Harold Forbes was a policeman.
Miss Rhoda's husband.
Yep. And Dr. Roy McTaggart. He was nominated by Dora Watler and Mr. H. Lester Rose.
Yeah, Dora was she used to work for him.
Yeah, and what we call Uncle Duke Marion. He was nominated by Henry J. Arch and Mona G. Marion. And then you had Colin Panton. He was nominated by James A. Borden. That was the beverage man. And Norman Borden.
Okay, and the results?
The results of that election was that Dr. Roy was elected in Georgetown. Dr. Roy McTaggart was elected, and Uncle Ducan Merrin was elected, and Colin Panton was elected as the three candidates for Georgetown in that election.
Okay, Madam Speaker.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Yes. Mr. Ormond Panton was nominated for Georgetown by T.W. Bodden, as Willie Bodden, and John H. Conley, but he withdrew his nomination.
Yes.
He was later appointed to the House on March 6th the following year by the governor, by the administrator, to replace Mr. Forbes, who resigned.
Okay. Now, Madam Speaker, I'd like you to cover the sister islands as well as Bordentown.
Okay, we have Arnold A. Foster. He was nominated by H.M. McLaughlin and Theophilus Rich. We have Mr. Nolan E. Foster. He was nominated by Kendall Ryan and Godler Rich. We have R.N.C.
Sedler Rich.
Sedler Rich?
Yes.
Oh. Are you sure, Sedler?
Yeah.
Okay. R.N.C. Jackson. He was nominated by Henry Conley and Beresford Jackson. And then Keith P. Tibbetts, who was Captain Keith. He was in house for a long time. Clara Walton and John McLaughlin.
Okay.
And then in Bordentown, like I said, we always lead the way in these things. We had Malcolm Eden. He was nominated by Clarence Watler and William McCoy, W.B. McCoy. We had Mrs. Francine Jackson. She was nominated by Mrs. Angelia Conley and Arthur Woods. Arthur Woods was a young man at the time. And Mrs. Angelia Conley lived to be 103.
Wow.
James Miller, A.J. Miller as we called him, he was nominated by Mr. Clifton Hunter and Mr. William Wood, Willowwood. And Mrs. Laurel Watler, she was nominated by Arthur Woods and Gwyneth Hunter. Gwyneth Hunter was Mr. Hunter's wife. And like I said, Arthur Woods was a young man in Bordentown at the time. He seconded Mrs. Jackson's nomination, and he actually nominated Miss Laurel.
Okay, and the results of those elections in Cayman Brack and Bordentown.
Oh, let me find that page now.
Okay.
Where is
it? Here you go. You can use this one.
Yeah.
Nolan B. Foster.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The sister islands, of course, you know, the official record says the lesser islands.
Yes.
But I see they've corrected that.
We have to.
Dressed it up. Nolan B. Foster for the sister islands and Captain Parker Tibbetts. And like I said, Captain Tibbetts served for a very long time in the House after that. And then in Bordentown we had Malcolm Eden and Arlie James Miller.
A.J.
And A.J. resigned because he got his call to go to sea with Southwell before he actually had a chance to serve. He resigned and he was replaced by Mr. Anton Bodden. He was the only person nominated to replace Mr. Miller. And his election was declared on the 17th of October, 1959.
Okay, we still have two districts, but we passed our commercial break, so folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
I'm going to Vant Motors to test drive the new 7-seater Rush.
They have some really sweet deals going on now, not true?
Yep, on SUVs. And they sweeten the deal by giving you a warm oven-baked cookie with each test drive.
Better test drive more than one, just to be sure.
Take a test drive for a sweet surprise this month at Vant Motors. Test drive any SUV and receive a freshly baked cookie. It's our way of saying thanks for dropping by to check out our huge sale on every SUV in stock. Save up to $4,400 during Vant's summer SUV sale. That's every SUV in stock on sale for thousands off or cash back. Sweeten the deal only at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
In 1996, Rotary Club Central led the way initiating a disaster fund to prepare and assist our community toward recovery. The Rotary Clubs of the Cayman Islands then expanded this valuable instrument, the Rotary Cayman Disaster Fund. Thereafter, Rotary District 7020, a group of 86 clubs over 10 countries in 16 islands across the Northwest Caribbean, grew this idea, the Rotary District 7020 Disaster Fund. Today, this Rotary Central idea has worked relief and recovery, assisting communities throughout this region. Rotary, with you before, during, and after. Rotary, connecting the world.
Remember to discard all fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, all foods in canisters, dented, leaking or rusting cans after they have come in contact with floodwater. Also discard foods that are stored in cardboard boxes, paper foil, cellophane, and cloth, as well as those in open containers and packages. For more post-hurricane food safety tips, visit DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're on the last leg of the show this morning. In the studio with me, you have the Honourable Mary Lawrence, former Speaker of our Legislative Assembly, Dr. Steve MacPhail, and MLA, Councillor, Acting Minister, Mr. Austin Harris. We've been discussing the introduction of the 1959 Constitution in the Cayman Islands, the first elections held on the 23rd of September 1959, following our Constitution. We're now giving you the results, the candidates who stood in those elections and the results of that. When we finish that, I will give each one of our guests around the table an opportunity for some closing comments as well. So I'm going to ask Madam Speaker again to cover the districts of East End and the North Side, the candidates, who they were nominated by, and the results as well. Madam Speaker.
In East End, we had William Allen McLaughlin. That's the father of the present Premier. The grandfather of the present Premier, sorry. And he was nominated by Lincoln Bodden and Burnell Dixon. And it was an unchallenged nomination. He was returned unopposed. And there's a little story connected to that. Mr. Goldwyn from East End swore that never again in East End would they have an election that was unchallenged. So after that, every time when there was an election, he would put himself up. He lost his money, but he didn't care. There was going to be an election in East End. There was not going to be an unchallenged situation again.
Okay.
And Mr. Craddock Ebanks in North Side, he was nominated by Mr. Tideman Ebanks, seconded by Benjamin Ebanks. And Samuel A. Powery, he was nominated by Judson McCoy and seconded by Mabel Powery.
And our results of the North Side?
The North Side election, Mr. Craddock Ebanks, who would go on to become the father of the House, was elected at that point.
Okay. We have 7 Sorry.
The nomination day was Monday, the 14th of September, 1959. The preliminary list of voters was published on August the 10th under Regulation 13.3 of the Elections Law. And the public was given 10 days to inspect the list of persons who made claims to have their names inserted or mistakes verified on the list of voters. There were no objections recorded, so the election went forward smoothly as per the list that was provided at that point. It was the first time. We also had a written ballot.
So 9 days between nomination day and election day.
Well, it was important at that point to get a government in place because we were without a government at that point in time, and the government was appointed. The cabinet. It was the first time we would also have a council by statute. Before that, we had a council that was just when the administrator came, when Major Donald came, when he came, he put in he looked at the size of the Legislative Assembly of Justices in Vestry and found it was rather unwieldy to try to work with everybody. And so he appointed from among that group a small cabinet or a small council that would work with him. But it was not actually a part of the Constitution or a legal part of anything that was going on. And so when the new Constitution was devised, it was to include a properly appointed council. And in that council, the governor would have the opportunity to name 3 nominated and 3 appointed members.
And in this case, in the case in 1959, the Executive Council then consisted of His Honor Major Alan Donald. Also, we had the Honorable James Rufus Astwood, the Attorney General.
No, he was a stipendiary magistrate. We didn't have an Attorney General.
Okay, well, I think they have put this in modern day terms.
But you can't put it in modern day terms because it was a long time after.
Yes, you have to reflect history.
Yes.
So we need to correct that. And stipendiary magistrate.
Our court fell under Jamaica for some long time after that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And they came down.
And the commissioner was actually the person who was in the Grand Court.
Right, and then we had the Honorable Ernest Audie Panton, who was the assistant administrator. Then we had the Honorable William Allen McLaughlin. He's an elected member of Executive Council. And Honorable Thomas William Farrington, elected member. And Theophilus Rennie Borden as a nominated member as well. We're almost out of time, but I want to give everyone around the table a very, very brief moment for some closing comments, starting with you, Madam Speaker, and going around the table.
Yes, the council that was appointed at that, the government that was appointed at that point had 12 elected members, but it also had 6 people that were appointed or selected by name by the commissioner or the administrator to be a part of that government. And it was one of the ways in which they actually controlled, as Mr. Ormond Patton would find out when he brought his party to fore and he had the power to actually form the government. It was actually pulled from under his feet by the commissioner, the administrator of the day, by appointing people that he could control within the House.
Yes.
That was a part of it.
Okay.
And the House, there was a big ceremony when the Parliament sat for the first time on October the 5th. And then the House Parliament met officially the first time on November the 6th. As an official body. But the swearing-in ceremony on October the 5th was attended by a delegation from Jamaica, including Sir Hugh Foote and his wife, Lady Foote.
Bustamante.
And Prime Minister Bustamante. And in our House of History in Bodentown, we have a picture of Mr. Willie Farrington presenting the representative of the Prime Minister of Jamaica with a copy of a little plaque of the Cayman coat of arms, and with Mr. Bustamante looking on the picture.
Excellent.
Yes, that anybody who wants to know what Cayman history is like and wants to know how the Constitution is developed need to come to Bodentown. We have laid it out there, text and photographs, so you can see how it happened.
Okay.
O.C., thank you.
Acting Minister.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to say what a pleasure it has been to join you this morning and the distinguished guests, Madam Speaker, Ms. Mary Lawrence and Dr. Steve McField, as we commemorate today's historical recognition of the 60th anniversary of the first general election held in the Cayman Islands on the 23rd of September, 1959. I want to thank the Celebrate Cayman Committee, led by Alfonso Wright and Cara Coe, but assisted by Ms. Christy Watler from the Cabinet Office and Jana Pucci from the Premier's Office for the preparation of much of the information in which we discussed here this morning. Would encourage your listeners to tune in again this afternoon for a continuation of these conversations and a continued celebration of today's 60th anniversary. Certainly for those persons, those historians, or just anyone in general, there's an excellent repository of much of today's discussion contained in a single publication. That is the book Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People, published, I think, in 2003. There's a foreword by the Honorable Roy Bodden, MLA, former Minister of Education. It is not a definitive recount of history, as we discovered quickly on page 311 of this book, where it talks about political rights for women, where it's an incorrect statement in the book. Yes. It states that no women were elected or even stood in 1959, which we understand is incorrect. There were, in fact, 4 women that did, in fact, stand. We talked about them this morning as well. But certainly it has been, I think, a very illuminating conversation for me, certainly, and hopefully for the listening audience. And again, always a pleasure to be a guest with you on this program, and look forward to the opportunity in which to return. Again, a very special thanks to my 2 distinguished colleagues who certainly were, I think, the stars of the show with their incredible memory and their recount of the historical context of the Cayman Islands.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. Doc.
I would just like to leave your listeners with a quote from William James from Harvard University, a famous professor. He said a deep need in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. So we need to appreciate our women. I would also like to leave a quote from Professor Cornel West from Harvard also. He says, "You cannot lead the people if you do not love the people. You cannot save the people if you do not serve the people." So I say we have to recognize our women, what they have done for us. We cannot be, if we cannot forge this relationship unless there is a commitment, unless there is loyalty, unless there is love, patience, and persistence. That's what we need to do. We need to do more for our women. Our women have only been scratching the surface. And the fact that they got the suffrage in 1959 was revolutionary, but we need to go more, and we need to break the glass ceiling in which they are waiting under, hoping to get up in the attic. We need to do that, and we need to do it as soon as possible, because with them overwhelmingly controlling the electorate,
53% as opposed to 47.
And they control the workforce as well.
And they control the workforce
and they control education
and
as well.
They control education too. Why are they not equal to the men? And I'd say this should be the year of. Next year should be the year of the women.
And I want to add one thing to this. I was raised to believe that the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world.
But certainly on that point, we cannot end without paying homage and recognition to, I believe, the 11 women who have served in the post of member of the Legislative Assembly in the last 60 years. Certainly, my hat goes off to tip to all of those women, and certainly to echo the sentiments of both the Speaker and Dr. McField. It would be nice to see more and more women continue to not only be nominated and run, but certainly also likewise be elected to the post of the Legislative Assembly. I would certainly like to see that day as well.
Maybe we can look at a constitution and remove, nothing to do with the personalities, but remove the deputy governor and the attorney general from the Legislative Assembly, and if anything, have those 2 seats there exclusively for women in our Legislative Assembly. That would be something novel now, wouldn't that be, Madam Speaker? I want to thank you all.
Mr. Harris, I want to say this to you. I hear you. I hear what you're saying about having more women in the Legislative Assembly. But you look at what's happened to the Republicans up there in the United States with that slew of Democratic women that went in the last poll. And I tell you one thing.
Careful what you wish for, huh?
Oh, I did.
I personally support them all, though.
Indeed. And I did follow up during the break with regards to why your picture was missing in the Legislative Assembly. And apparently the comment was no picture was provided, which I think is a flimsy excuse because certainly we could have used an official photo.
Precisely.
However, we cannot make up for the mistakes of the past. If you provide me with a beautiful picture of yourself, which I'm sure you have thousands of.
Why don't we provide a photographer for? Why don't we provide an official photographer for?
I had official pictures done when I was there. There was an official picture of me over the door in the LA when I was there.
Yeah. Well,
no.
This is coming directly from the speaker himself, saying that there is no picture.
I heard that little story.
Well, if you and I can work together to correcting that, it'll be in the Legislative Assembly as soon as I have it in my hand.
We'll discuss that off air as well, folks. I want around the table. I want to thank you very much for being. Yeah. I want to thank you all for being here this morning, folks. I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the very busy roads of the Cayman Islands into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Ebanks at 12:15, where he will have another panel of distinguished guests continuing to discuss the same topic. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.